In today's video, I want to demonstrate how to model this part using only two rectangles and two lines. Okay, so we're going to model this using two rectangles and two lines. So I've started a new part file, and I will start a new sketch on the front plane. And I'm going to start by drawing a 2-point corner rectangle. I'll start at the origin, and I'm going to come over to the left about like that. And then I'm going to change this vertical line to a construction line, and then I recommend drawing one rectangle, one circle, or one line and dimensioning it immediately for a sense of scale. So I'm going to do a diametral dimension from this center line over to this point, and I'll make sure I get over here on this side so that I do the diametral dimension, and I'm going to do that dimension as 285. Of course, if I want to change that dimension, I can just double click on it and change it to whatever dimension I need. And then I'm going to dimension the distance from here to here as 106. Okay, my geometry turns black. It's all fully constrained, so as I go along, I make sure that I fully define all of my geometry. I've turned off the display of the relations. Let me turn on the display of the relations so that we can see those. We see that SolidWorks automatically put a vertical constraint on this line, which I want to remove. So I'm going to delete that vertical constraint, and now I can drag this line over about like that. Let's go ahead and dimension that line too, from the center line over to this point, and I'll get over here to put the diametral dimension in, and I'll do that as 260. So as I go along, all of my geometry is fully defined. I'm then going to draw a line from about right here, and I'm going to come down here, but be careful not to click on the midpoint of that line unless that's where it should go. I'm not sure that that's where it should go, so I'm going to click over here, and then I need to fully dimension the location of this line. So I'm going to dimension the diametral dimension, and I'm going to set that dimension as 66, and then I'm going to dimension the diametral dimension down here, and I'm going to set that as 90. My geometry is fully constrained. It tells me down here that it's fully defined. It turns black. I know that it's constrained. I'll now draw a line from about right here, and again, I'm being careful not to pick that midpoint of that line unless that's where I want to dimension. I'm going to draw a line over here horizontally, and then I'll dimension the distance of that line from here to here as 70. Okay, so we've drawn one rectangle, two lines. I'm going to draw a second rectangle, so I'm going to draw a rectangle and I'm going to put it down here somewhere. Be careful again not to click on that midpoint unless that's where you want it, and I'll draw that rectangle about like that. I'm going to change this line to a construction line, and then I'll dimension the diametral dimension from here over to here. That diameter is 42, and then I'll dimension the distance from here up to here, and that dimension I'll do as 124. I see that my geometry is still blue, so when the geometry is still blue, if you're not sure what dimension you still need or what constraint, just drag it, and I see that I don't have the horizontal position of this dimensioned yet, so I'll dimension from this point over to the center line. I'll put the diametral dimension for that, and I'll change the dimension to 170. So all of our geometry has turned black. It's all fully defined. I'm going to do one more step. I'm going to mirror this over to the other side. So I'm going to do mirror entities. I'll select this line as the line I want to mirror, and I'm going to mirror about this center line, and I'll say OK to that. And I'm going to change this one then to construction. Alright, so I drew two rectangles and two lines. Actually, I lied to you. If we count this mirror, I did 1, 2, 3 lines. So two rectangles and 2 or 3 lines, depending on how you count that. I'll finish the sketch, and I'm going to do a revolve, and I want to revolve this area right in here. So I'm going to select that as the area that I want to revolve, and then I'm going to select this axis as my axis of revolution. And when I do that, it's trying to do this as a thin feature. I'm going to uncheck thin feature, and so that I just get that area inside there. I'll say OK to that, and so I have revolved that area. And then I'm going to make my sketch visible again, so I'll do show sketch, and I'm going to select this line, and I'll do revolve again. For my selected contour, I'll select this area in here, and it doesn't want to select that area because I have an open area, and usually it will ask if you want to close that area. I'm going to try it one more time. I'm not ready to give up on it just yet. I'll select it over here, and I'll do selected contour, and so it doesn't want to, so we'll have to add a line. So I lied to you again. We need to add another line to that sketch, and so let's put a line in here, an object line from here to here over top of that construction line that I used so that I could put in the diametral dimension, the 42 dimension. And so we can always go back in time and edit a sketch when needed. So I'll do revolve again. This time my selected contour, I'll get this area, and we'll say OK to that. And so that is revolved. I'm going to put some fillets on here, and so I'm going to do a fillet on this edge, and I'll go ahead and select that one as radius 10. And I accidentally got the face, so let me undo that, and we'll make sure I get just this edge, and I'll do fillet, and I'll say OK to that, and then I'll get this edge. I'll do a fillet on that, and I'm going to change the radius on this one to 8. I'll say OK to that, and I'm going to do one more fillet on this edge, and so I'll do a fillet, and I'm going to do that one, let's say 1.5. So I put some fillets on my part. Now I want to pattern this cylinder and this fillet around the part. So I'm going to do a circular pattern. I'm going to select as the features I want to pattern this revolve, and I also want to get that last fillet. And then for the axis, I'll go around the center of the part. I'll tell it 5 copies equally spaced. So I have that geometry. I'm going to go ahead and shell this now, so I'll do shell. I'm going to select that face to remove. I also want to remove the faces on the bottom of these cylinders. I'm going to set my shell thickness to 3.5. Of course, all of these dimensions are parametric, so if you need to make a change, you can go back and edit to get whatever dimensions you need. Next, I'm going to do a rib, so let me select that line, and I'm going to do a rib, and it tries to select all of this geometry. I'm going to make sure that I've cleared all my selections. I'll reselect that line, so I'll have only that line selected. And for my direction, I need to go parallel to the sketch, and then I need to go down, so I'll click on this arrow so that it's going down. I'll say OK, and I decided I want to change the width of that rib. I just left it on the default, so I'll say edit feature, so we can always go back and edit any sketch or any feature, and I'll do 3.5. and I know exactly what's going to happen because I use a robust technique for modeling my part, so everything does exactly what I would expect it to do. Notice that the edges of the circle look a little jaggy. I'm going to go to the document properties. I'm going to go to image quality, and I'm going to set that image quality up higher so that it looks smoother. Alright, so now my circle looks smoother. I'll do the circular pattern of this rib. Now I want to go about the center of the part. I'll say OK to that. I'll hide my sketch number 1 that we use to control all the geometry, and so we see it from all sides. And again, if I want to change the size, I can simply edit the sketch and double click on any dimension to change that. If I wanted to make this say 70, I'll just edit that and accept the change, and it will change my model. If I wanted to change the height of that rib, I could edit that sketch again and just double click on the height for the rib, and let's change that, say, to 35. So I'm going to bring it much closer to the top of the part. I'll click up here to update everything, and so now that brought that up higher. If I want to change the color of this part, I'll go to the appearances. I want to change the part appearances, and I could pick some other color, more to more to my liking. So that's it. 2 rectangles and 2 or 3 lines, depending on how you count the mirror.